California, along with some other states, have sued the Trump administration over frozen state education funding. And this is all getting a little bit confusing, so let me break out a few things that are unique to this case and a few things that are not so unique. I'm Brian, I make videos about civics and law. You can find a copy of this filing in my shared documents right here. Okay, let's talk about California v. McMahon. Now generally, this is one of a number of cases that revolves around the separation of power and the limits of the executive branch. But I want to give you a quick reminder of why this is a real debate and not just bluster and people throwing spaghetti at the wall. So when you look at the Constitution, the first two articles, which lay out the legislative branch, Congress, and the executive branch, presidency, are very, very different looking. The first article, the one that talks about Congress, is very, very long and very, very specific. Congress can do this, and they can do this, and they can do this, and that is all. It's a very long list, but it's also a very definitive list. Article 2 has a little bit of that specificity in there, but mostly its biggest commandment right up at the beginning, the first line is, the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. It's a little vague and it lacks specificity. And after that, it just sort of goes off and talks about other stuff for a while. And there has been an argument over what the executive power means ever since. Even the people who were on the same side of writing this document, particularly James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, who wrote the Federalist Papers together. I mean, they were besties, basically became borderline enemies over the reading of this one line. And that's sort of an oversimplification, but this line really does exemplify what kind of tore them apart. And they were both in the room where it happens, as it were, when it got written, and they still never agreed on what the executive power of the president meant. So, does Congress, with its long list of specific instructions in Article 1, do all of the work of governing, and then the president just very obediently does exactly what Congress tells them to do? Or does Congress do its thing, and then the president is like a CEO of a company, making decisions and sort of honing whatever Congress did into the best possible outcome? Well, the answer is we've sort of wavered back and forth between those two models throughout our history. Sometimes the president just executes, sometimes the president acts more like a business executive. And people disagree on which is more effective. Alexander Hamilton thought the business model executive was better. James Madison thought that made the president too much like a king. So that's what we're arguing about in this case, as well as several of these other cases. What are the limits on executive power? In this case, Congress already said the money goes here. Can the president just decide, nope, I'm going to decide for myself whether or not I want to send money to this particular thing or another? And I can tell you that historically, we have said no. The power of the purse is very much in Congress's court. But we have also changed a lot of things over the years, guys. Yeah, you'd be amazed how many times the kind of bedrock American ideals have shifted from one side to another and then shifted back. So that's one of the big things going on in this case, and that's common to a lot of these lawsuits going on right now that we're talking about. The current administration and the broader MAGA movement believe that government should be run more like a business and that a single person in charge, the executive, should have a lot of play in what he is allowed to decide. So that's sort of the underlying issue. I think a lot of us understand that already. Now, there are another couple interesting things going on here related to the recent Trump v. Casa ruling that I want to talk about here. They have to do not only with the plaintiffs involved, but also the style of relief that is sought in this case. So first, the plaintiffs in this case are all states, and that's probably just because states are the only people who probably would have standing to do this. But it's also interesting that one of the loopholes that Justice Gorsuch noted would bypass the Casa decision is if states came in and filed on behalf of their residents. So in theory, this case could get around the Casa case, and an injunction could force the federal government to pay out to at least the states who are plaintiffs in this case. The second thing is that this case seeks declaratory relief. And again, I think that may have happened anyway, but let me tell you why it might be interesting. Now, injunctions are a form of equity, equitable relief. And the Casa case said that equity is limited, and that's why the power of injunctions are limited. This case seeks declaratory relief, a declaration from the court that the funding freeze is unlawful for a variety of reasons. Declaratory relief is not equitable relief. It's a relief in the court of law, not equity, which I know sounds like everything's a court of law. You're going to have to trust me. It's actually very different. This is a form of relief rooted in common law, not the court of equity. So, since the Casa case is all about equitable relief, this isn't impacted by the CASA case. Now, the complaint here does seek both equitable and legal relief, so they're using everything that's available to them, but I had wondered when CASA came out whether we'd start seeing more declaratory relief requests coming out soon to sort of get around CASA, because if equity is the problem, then let's use non-equitable options. So maybe this is the beginning of people starting to do that. I don't know. We shall see. And then there's also an Administrative Procedures Act issue here, which is a whole other thing that I really kind of need to make its own video about. So I'll get to that at some point. Meanwhile, I'm sure the administration is going to file a response very soon. We'll get to see their answer to the preliminary injunction and to the complaint itself. So I will respond to those when they come out. Be sure to take a look at this filing in my shared documents and comment, repost, follow me for more information, and let me know if you have questions about this. And generally, thanks for watching, everybody.